Hi, this is Dr. Amanda with Tiger Family Chiropractic and Wellness Center. Thank you for joining me today. I wanted to talk to you about hypermobility. And so this may or may not apply to you, but the people who have hypermobility traditionally exhibit things like being super bendy, like they've always been so flexible. It's so easy for them to bend down and touch their toes, and they've been able to do it their whole life, and they're just really flexible individuals. That could be an indication of hypermobility. Another thing I see very common when there's a hypermobility situation is when an individual is, I would say, accident prone, but kind of different from that. And really what I mean is they could do the same activity that 10 other people do, yet they walk away with an injury from the normal activity. So I'm not saying that they, had an extra fall down the steps because they are clumsy. It's not that at all. It would be more like if you could picture everybody's gonna do the potato sack race, and you all tie each other into the bags, and you hop and you hop and you hop as fast as you can. And this person, when they finish it, the next day feels like they've sprained both of their ankles. Whereas everybody else was like, no, maybe I have a sore muscle from hopping where I didn't before, but I don't feel injured. Another thing that can happen with a hypermobility individual is that surgical procedures, especially relating to the joint spaces, often either go poorly or the recovery doesn't match what they're anticipating. So hypermobility ultimately has to do with how the ligament is holding and protecting the joint space. So traditionally, you and I, if we're going to do an activity, should have the joint naturally stop us from going too far into a motion before it could cause an injury. Somebody who has hypermobility, and I don't, so I'm going to fake it. I don't want to bend too far, but they can move faster and further into a motion, further into the motion than what you and I could naturally do without any kind of pull or resistance to that. And what that means is that often they have a better range of motion in an activity, but that they easily have injury occur to those spots. And so that natural tendency has to do with ligament function, because that's what holds bone to bone. So in a hypermobility situation, that natural protective mechanism isn't functioning. That could either be the result of the ligaments being too loose, where they're not restricting and holding down in a region, or it could also be the result of maybe some inflammation where the ligament didn't heal properly, and now that area is more prone to re-injury. And so there is a home check you can do for hypermobility. And so here's how we do it. If you have your arm out to the side and you're going to try, please don't force this. You either can or you can't do it. There's not really any in between. But if you can easily bend, I don't know which way to do this, bend your thumb to your forearm. I'm getting nowhere with this. I'm not hypermobile. But hypermobile individuals, they can bend the thumb right down to the forearm. It's a great home check for seeing if this is something that's going on for you. And if it is, then number one, physical activities, contact sports, these require a little extra measure of caution. Surgical procedures, especially involving joint spaces, a little extra measure of caution, in my opinion, that you should maybe consider other options prior to surgery. And then in terms of the chiropractic field, is it possible, right, if this person is hypermobile, could they have a subluxation? And a subluxation, if you can picture, has to do with your spine, where the bone gets jammed up, stuck tight, the joint space isn't moving to its full potential. So is it possible with somebody who is hypermobile, whose joints move too much, to also have a joint that's stuck? Yes, our bodies are dynamic creatures, and you could have one joint move too much and another joint essentially be jammed up and stuck, especially along the spine. And so for hypermobile individuals, in my history of taking care of individuals who have this, I noticed that these are people who are very, very flexible in their spine too, and they really are closely aware to a spot that's subluxated. Like it just bothers them so much. They feel like they need to work it, stretch it. And these are people who traditionally resort to stretching constantly. You'll see them just pulling and working these spots because it just almost overdrives their body's sensitivity and awareness from that lost area of movement because the rest of their body moves so much and so freely. I do add the extra caution for people who have hypermobility to be considerate when you're choosing a chiropractic office. I think it's wise to choose one that's familiar with hypermobility, because if this spot is stuck and these areas of your spine are moving too much, it makes sense to me that we only want to add motion or correction or an adjustment to the area that is subluxated or stuck and not really affect the entire spine. So a very specific adjusting chiropractor is essential, in my opinion, for making sure that a hypermobile patient recovers and responds very beautifully to their chiropractic care. So thank you so much and take care.